Geronimo by Shepherd. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM, unless you're tuned in on insanityradio.com/listen, in which case you might be watching Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and I'm going to be with you for the next 2 hours. 2 hours. And, oh gosh, I have an amazing topic lined up for you this week. I have a topic that I've wanted to do for a long time, but I never found what I thought would be an ideal moment for it. And over the past week, the ideal moment has most definitely revealed itself, and I will explain more later in the show. But first, I'm going to go throw on a few more tunes, but before I do, one little story I have to share with you. It's a well-known fact that humans love sticking things in batter. They love battering everything, whether it's battered fish, battered sausage, or even battered Mars bar. I still haven't tried this. I still haven't tried the battered Mars bar, but one chip shop is taking things to the extreme this winter by introducing battered sprouts to its festive menu. They, in the run-up to Christmas, Marshall's Fish Bar in Cullompton in Devon is selling portions of 5 battered Brussels sprouts for £1.50. And just in case battered sprouts don't tickle your pickle, you can go all out and choose the Marshall's Christmas Chip Shop dinner, which consists of a chicken leg, battered sprouts, battered carrots, a battered pig in a blanket, a battered stuffing ball, a gravy bomb, which is effectively an ice cube of gravy surrounded in a mashed potato, covered in breadcrumbs and fried, and a battered mince pie, all for the very tempting price of £9.95. Would you try this? I really want to find out if this is something that could actually happen. Could this become a thing? I really want to know. Give me your opinion. You can tweet into the studio here at Insanity Radio using the handle at Insanity Radio. That was kind of a two-pronged thing going on there, but I'm going to throw on a few more tunes, so stick around, and we're going to listen to a little bit of Greg Lake. Girl in the Country song by Maddie and Tay. Before that, we were listening to I Believe in Father Christmas by Greg Lake and I Get Around by the Beach Boys. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow. And, fun topic. I'm going to get started on this favourite topic that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I'm going to try to actually do this coherently too. I'm still recovering from throatitis at the moment. For the past week at least, I have just been drained. I have had, Monday and Tuesday, I was totally incapable of speaking at all. My throat was so toady, so dry and so coarse that it was nasty. It was nasty. I'm feeling a lot better now, but my head's still not quite in the game just yet, so bear with me, and I will try not to make a total pig's ear of this. Now, a lot of you might have heard in the news recently about the Disney being set to buy Fox in a $52 billion deal that's anticipated to reshape the media industry. It's definitely a landmark, isn't it? It's definitely a milestone of some kind. It's supposed to be transforming the Hollywood landscape, and apparently a lot of people have said it was once unthinkable. But I mean, you wouldn't expect Disney to be buying out Fox. You wouldn't expect Fox to be selling out. It's interesting, but the Simpsons have already thought about it. The Simpsons already, almost 20 years ago. In the 10th episode, it was a 10th season, not the 10th episode, the 10th season, sorry. There was an episode called When You Dish Upon a Star. Homer Simpson was chatting to Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger in front of a big Fox sign that said, 20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Company. And that's a little bit wowie. The Simpsons has been running for about 25 years, so it's sort of inevitable that some themes that crop up in the show might occur in real life, but some of the plot lines are eerily close to events that have actually ended up happening throughout the world. I mean, they seemed to they seemed to predict the President Trump theory. They Lady Gaga's performance at the Super Bowl, was it last year or the start of this year, and the 2016 Nobel Prize winner all seem to have already happened in The Simpsons years before they actually happened. So, can The Simpsons predict the future? That's a question a lot of people have been asking. A lot of people have been skeptical. A lot of people are thinking it's possible. But I mean, over the next hour or so, I'm going to be sharing. I have put together quite the list of things that have happened in The Simpsons that have ended up happening in real life, and I'm going to be sharing quite a few of them over the next at least half an hour. And I mean, today seems absolutely perfect for it. Like I said, this is a question I wanted to ask for a long time, but I mean, the whole Disney and Fox deal merger thing has just, shed a whole new light on it for me. And the fact that today was the debut airing of The Simpsons way back in 1989. So I thought this was even more of an apt topic for the occasions. 28 years. Yes, it's not even 20. Yeah, 28 years The Simpsons has been gracing our TV sets, and what a perfect topic to cover. Can The Simpsons predict the future? Stay tuned to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM over the next hour or so, and we will be finding out. We will be finding out a lot more about it. Until then, I'm going to throw on a few more tunes. Stick around. What Doesn't Kill You by Kelly Clarkson. Before that, we were listening to Mad World by Michael Andrews and Lean On Me by Bill Withers. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and before the music earlier in the show, I was talking about The Simpsons. They've been on air for the last 28 years, and it's kind of scary just how many things have happened throughout episodes of The Simpsons that have ended up happening in real life, and I am going to be sharing a few of them with you now. First off, we have in 2008, The Simpsons showed Homer trying to vote for Barack Obama in the general election, but a faulty machine changed his vote. And 4 years later, a voting machine in Pennsylvania had to be removed after it kept changing people's votes for Barack Obama to ones for Mitt Romney. In 1998, an episode called The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, Homer Simpson becomes an inventor, and there's a clip of him shown in front of a complex equation on a blackboard, and the equation predicts the massive Higgs boson particle, but it wasn't until 2013, that's about almost 15 years later, that the scientists discovered proof of the Higgs boson in a £10.4 billion experiment. Back in 1995, an episode of Lisa's Wedding. Lisa takes a trip to London, and in the episode we see a skyscraper behind a Tower Bridge that looks very, very similar to the Shard. And it's even in the same location, but the construction of the Shard started in 2009, about 14 years later. In the same episode, we discover that librarians have been replaced with robots in the Simpsons universe, and more than 20 years later, robotics students in Wales and Singapore were both built prototypes for walking library robots. And in 1994, the lunch lady Doris used assorted horse parts to make lunch for students at Springfield Elementary School, and 9 years later, the Food Safety Authority of Ireland found horse DNA in over a third of beef burger samples and ready meals. In 1993, The Simpsons parodied the entertainers Siegfried and Roy, and during the episode, the magicians were viciously mauled and by a trained white tiger while performing in the casino. Then in 2003, Roy really was attacked during a live performance by Montecore, one of their very own trained white tigers. You see a pattern starting to form here. Do you see this pattern starting to form yet? In 1991, in an episode of The Simpsons, saw the Beatles' Ringo Starr diligently answering fan mail that had been written decades ago. And then in September 2013, two Beatles fans received a reply from Paul McCartney to a letter they sent the band over 50 years prior. I'm going to throw in one more. We have an episode in 1990 that showed Springfieldians protesting against Michelangelo's statue of David being exhibited in the local museum, calling the artwork obscene for its nudity. And in July 2016, Russian campaigners voted on whether to clothe a duplicate of that very same statue that had been set up in central St. Petersburg. You see the pattern forming here. There's so many things happening in The Simpsons that have ended up happening in real life. And I'm not even halfway through the list that I've been putting together over the last week. It is insane. I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to throw on a few more tunes. We have had a song request. We have a song request for Bombaya by Blackpink. I have found it on the system. I have put it on. We're going to play that next. Stay tuned to Insanity Radio. Don't forget you can get your song requests in on Twitter at Insanity Radio. Tweet into the studio. Let me know what you think of the Simpsons theory so far. Let me know what you think of the battered Brussels sprouts. Let me know what you think of this song. Rock on. You've Got the Love by Florence and the Machine. Before that, we were listening to Bombaya by Blackpink and Like a Prayer by Madhouse. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and so far I've been sharing some of the uncanny happenings throughout the 28 years that The Simpsons has been around. Some of the things that have happened have ended up happening in real life, as sometimes over a decade later, is it's quite impressive. So today I'm asking the question, can The Simpsons really predict the future? As an example, in an episode from 1990, Bart Simpson caught a three-eyed fish named Blinky in the river by the nuclear power plant, which made local headlines. And more than a decade later, a three-eyed fish was discovered in a reservoir in Argentina, and that reservoir, strangely enough, was fed water from a nuclear power plant. In 1995, an entire lemon tree was stolen from a garden in The Simpsons, and in 2013, in Houston, a thief stole a lemon tree from a garden, leaving behind the valuables. In an episode of 1995, Lisa's future fiancé was talking verbally, communicating using a smartwatch, and in 2013, nearly 18 years later, the first smartwatch was released. Oh, goodness, it goes on, doesn't it? It goes on. In 1998, The Simpsons' Professor Fink made hamburger earmuffs. In 2010, hamburger earmuffs became a popular novelty way to stay warm. And in 1994, during an episode of The Simpsons, they were using a digital smart product with very poor autocorrect capabilities that constantly misunderstood what they were saying, and the results were quite funny. And this little digital smart product was sporting a logo of an apple. And in 2011, Apple released Siri. In 1998, during another episode, Springfield kids were all hyped up and hooked on a yard work simulator. Yes, they were excited by a yard work simulator. And then in 2009, 11 years later, Farmville became a global hit. In 1992, a character on The Simpsons created a baby translator which could translate the sounds a baby would make. In 2013, almost 20 years later, a baby cry translator was released and said to be able to analyze a baby's cry within 10 seconds, letting you know what kind of emotion comes with it. In 1995, during a scene of the future, there was a Rolling Stones poster on the wall that said Wheelchair Tour 2010. In the real world, in 2012, the Rolling Stones held a live tour in London's O2 Arena. In 2002, an episode of The Simpsons saw Mick Jagger and Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones give Homer a Guitar Hero jacket 3 years before Guitar Hero existed. This is all very, very scary stuff, is it not? Are you scared yet? Are you intrigued? Are you curious? I would love to know. In 1996, during an episode of The Simpsons, the high-tech intercom that looked identical to what ended up being the first-generation iPod in 2001. In 1998, an episode called Lard of the Dance, Homer Simpson was stealing used cooking grease from restaurants to sell it for quick cash. And in 2013, a huge spike of reported thefts consisted of organised criminals stealing used cooking oils from restaurants. In 1995, yes, this is still going on, feature phones had video call capabilities. In 2003, the first mainstream phones with video call capabilities were released. That is 8 years later. In 2009, one of the episodes had the national parks shut down and signs were used to replace police officers to unsuccessfully stop people from entering the parks. In 2013, a federal government shutdown saw all national parks closed down and tried unsuccessfully to secure the sites with the use of signs. And in another episode, they managed to duplicate OK Go's music video for Here It Goes. Here It Goes Again. They had this in an episode, a music video that looks identical to OK Go's music video, almost 10 years before the video even happened. Okay, I've been talking for eternity now, so I'm going to throw on a few more tunes, but stick around and we will eventually reach a conclusion. We will, honest.
Online and 103.2 FM. This is Insanity Radio.
Yes, this is Insanity Radio. That was Gold by Spandau Ballet. Before that, we were listening to Tainted Love by Soft Cell and Love Me Like You Do by Ellie Goulding. I am White Shadow, and so far for the past hour I have been talking about, I've been talking about battered Brussels sprouts, but mostly I've been talking about I've been talking about The Simpsons and their uncanny ability to have things happen in their episodes that end up happening in real life, sometimes over a decade later. And I'm going to carry on because I still have a few more of these, and I'm sure some of you are going, oh, not more. Yes, more. I want to make a statement. I want to make a point because there are so many. And for example, in one episode, the early millennium, from the somewhere around 2001, 2002, I think it was, in one of the episodes of The Simpsons, there was a sign that read, "The Florida Project, William Dafoe is a delight." And in 2017, The Florida Project ended up being one of the biggest breakout films of the year. In another episode, Homer can be seen reading a notepad that says, "Real winner, Moonlight." And years later in 2017, the Oscars, was it at the start of this year? The Oscars this year, La La Land was mistakenly announced the winner when in actual fact the coming-of-age drama Moonlight had won. And that's scary. An episode saw a duplicate of the iconic therapy scene from Mr. and Mrs. Smith. You know, the film Mr. and Mrs. Smith. There was an episode of The Simpsons that had almost identical setup to this, with the seats, the furniture, the walls, and even the seating arrangements being near identical to the film, over 5 years before the film even happened. There was an episode where they were participating in a swimming pool activity which saw the water turn green just a few years before the incident saw the diving pool turn green at Rio 2016. In 2007, there was an episode of The Simpsons where they go into hiding, and they were located by the NSA, listening into one of their phone call conversations. And 6 years later, in 2013, for the first time, the whistle was blown on the government mass surveillance of the phones and internet records of Americans. Again, something people didn't know was happening, but The Simpsons managed to make it happen before it happened. And in 2012, an episode called Politically Inept saw Homer Simpson appear as a guest on the new show, the news show Headbutt. And Headbutt, I like that. And there were scrolls of writing across the bottom of the screen like you do on most news shows, and one in particular said, "Europe puts country Greece on eBay." 3 years later, Greece was the first developed country to default to the International Monetary Fund, and that's just scary. In a scene from the 2010 Season 22 premiere, Martin holds up a betting pool scoreboard predicting Bengt Holmstrom winning a Nobel Prize. That's back in 2010. Then in 2016, Holmstrom won a Nobel Prize. They seem to have seen it happen 6 years before it happened. In 2000, Series 11, Episode 17, very specific, Bart Simpson flash-forwarded into the future, seeing his sister take over presidency from her predecessor, Donald Trump. In the episode, she was left with quite a budget crunch and was told the country was broke, and 16 years later, in 2016, Donald Trump was voted president. I think it was 2016. It certainly wasn't in 2000. They'd already done an episode on this back in 2000, and that's just fascinating. And in 2012, an episode saw a Simpsons performer singing a song for the residents of Springfield while suspended in the air. And 5 years later, in 2017, Lady Gaga descended from the roof of Houston's Energy Stadium for the halftime show of Super Bowl, also wearing a near identical outfit. Again, very scary. I'm going to throw on a few more tunes, so stick around and trust me, that was the end of my list for now. That was the end of my list, so we will continue very, very soon. Yeah, my poor old throat. My throat is suffering now. It's not very often I talk for nearly 2 hours. I've done 1 hour and I'm starting to struggle now, so I'm going to throw on a few more tunes. We're going to listen to some Uptown Girl by Westlife. Awesome. Uptown Girl by Westlife. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow. And yes, that was one song, just one song before I came back onto the mic, because I have been scrolling through the system, finding a few more songs that to fill up the next hour of my show. And something really exciting for me happened. I have found a whole list of at least 4 or 5, 6 songs, I think, that I absolutely love. And there is a fun story behind it. I don't know if I'll share the story just yet. I'll give that some thought, but I have found a whole list of songs that I absolutely love, and I'm going to be sharing a few of them with you right now before I move on to the next link. So I'm going to throw on a few more tunes. Stay tuned, because we're going to have some fun conversations over the next hour. Rock on. Oh, this song. I love this song. It's been a long time. Let's do this.
Something up with me.
Hey Good Looking by Hank Williams Jr. Before that, we were listening to Louisiana Woman, Mississippi Man by, I've got to make sure I say this right, Conway Twitty and Loretta Lynn. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and I absolutely love those songs. And I have even more lined up. I have another 3 of my art. It's just awesome. I'll tell you the story. Years and years ago, when I was playing, I've always had a bit of a thing for sort of, country westerny kind of music things that I just love that whole theme. And quite a few years ago, there was a game called Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and they had when you were playing the game, you could jump into a car that would have a radio station called K Rose, and on this radio station within the game called K Rose, you could listen to those very same songs. And whenever I got bored of doing the storyline, when I got bored of keeping to the missions and all that kind of stuff, I used to jump in one of the cars and I used to go for a little cruise around the map, listening to K-Rose, listening to those songs, and those were good times. Them there were good old times, yeehaw! And I'll be playing a few more of them later. But over the past almost an hour, over an hour, for the last hour, I have been sharing 32 uncanny resemblances between things that have happened on the Simpsons TV show and things that have actually ended up happening in real life years later. And I left a few out of that list. There were quite a few I left out of the list that I've shared with you too, because there were some that were kind of unconvincing enough that I just didn't think I could justify classing them as predictions. I mean, in one in particular case, as an example, in one episode of The Simpsons, Homer invented a new plant, which was a hybrid of the tomato and tobacco plant, and he called it Tobacco. And one of the real-life Simpsons fans decided they wanted to try to give it a go, so they started splicing tomato and tobacco genes, and they actually made it happen. I haven't been able to find out much about the actual level of success, but at least there was, if there isn't still, a tobacco plant, which was created because he loved The Simpsons so much he wanted to find out if it really was possible. But that wasn't really a prediction, and that was found on the list under predictions. So yes. Is it possible that the Simpsons writers have the uncanny ability to predict the future? Do comedy writers think differently enough to see things in a way that the average person just doesn't? Or are they really fortune tellers? Are they really future readers? That's a good question, isn't it? But is it also possible that they unintentionally there goes the voice. Is it possible that they unintentionally plant these ideas in our heads? I mean, for the past 28 years from this day, The Simpsons has been one of the most famous cartoons in the world. In 1990, there were 33.6 million people tuned in to watch one episode when it was first aired. I mean, there's roughly 15 scenes in one episode. That's at least 15 opportunities for them to slip in a little something comical, whimsical, or something that could maybe one day happen in the future or whatever. There's 15 scenes in one episode. Even if there's only one message, one item, one gag or something in each scene, that's a potential 504 million seeds planted into 33 million people's minds in the space of a 20-minute show. That's most definitely enough for a few things to perhaps stick to your mind for years and years down the line. I'm not saying that Donald Trump ended up president of the United States because it's happened in The Simpsons once and he was like, I think I might do that. What I'm saying is that the whole Donald Trump presidency thing is I could not explain that happening in The Simpsons and then happening in real life. I couldn't. But I mean, there's a lot of things here, like the hamburger earmuffs. They might have became a thing because somebody saw them in The Simpsons and thought, I have some money, I want to do something with a novelty item, let's try this. It could have been, there's so many possibilities. There's a lot of things that could have happened, but that, like I say, that doesn't explain things like guessing that Holmstrom would win a Nobel Prize. It can't be coincidence, along with the whole Rio water turning green thing and the Fox being bought out by Disney, a merger with them. It doesn't explain... How does that... The question certainly shouldn't be, can The Simpsons predict the future? Or should it? Or should it be more sort of, can The Simpsons change the future? Have The Simpsons influenced the future, the culture today, the things that have been happening? Has this been influenced by The Simpsons? I want to know what you think. I'll tweet into the studio at Insanity Radio and let me know what you think. I'm going to put on a few more tunes because I've been talking forever. Oh my gosh, I love this song. Enjoy.
Make it count, son. About 45 minutes on the tip of
Amos Moses by Jerry Reed. Before that, we were listening to All My Exes Live in Texas by Whitey Schaefer, and I Love a Rainy Night by Eddie Rabbit. Three more of my favourites from a fun time in my life. That was a fun time in my life. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and I'm going to move away eventually. Finally, I'm sure so many of you are going to be relieved. I am moving away from the subject of The Simpsons long enough to do my regular bit of On This Day. Oh yeah. Ooh yeah, smooth. Ow, my throat. Remind me not to try that this week. Today is Sunday, the 17th of December, the 351st day of the year, which means there are just 14 days left until the end of the year and just 8 days left until Christmas. Oh, do I want to do this? Let's try this. Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. I still got it. On this day in 1865, Franz Schubert's Unfinished Symphony premiered. On this day in 1900, a first prize of 100,000 francs was offered in France for communications with extraterrestrials. Interestingly, Martians were excluded from this offer because they were considered too easy. In 1947, New York was struck by a blizzard resulting in 27 inches of snow, and on this day in 1947, the British industrial company BTH received a patent for holography invented by Dennis Gabor in their development lab. On this day in 1962, the Beatles' first British TV appearance happened. It was a show called People and Places, I do believe, in 1964. On this day, Goldfinger, the third James Bond film starring Sean Connery and Honor Blackman, premiered in London. In 1965, the Astrodome opened in Houston, Texas. The first event involved performances from Judy Garland. In 1970, so much happened on this day. In 1979, Budweiser rocket car reached a speed of 739 miles per hour, breaking the record for the top speed of a wheeled vehicle. In 1986, Davina Thompson made medical history by having... just reading my notes, it says Davina Thompson made medical history by having the first heart, lung and liver transplants at Papworth Hospital in Cambridge. And with notes like this, it's just as well I'm not a surgeon. In 1989, of course, on this day, The Simpsons, created by Matt Groening, debuted. It's still America's longest running sitcom, a cartoon, whatever you want to call it. In 2003, the Soham murder trial ended at the Old Bailey in London, with Ian Huntley found guilty of 2 counts of murder of 10-year-olds Jessica Chapman and Holly Wells. His girlfriend Maxine Carr was found guilty of perverting the course of justice. In 2012, NASA completed a successful mission to map the moon's gravity field, and in 2013, Cat Stevens, Kiss and Nirvana were inducted. There we go, that's the one, that works. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Awesome. But we also have some celebrity birthdays today. We have some... Pope Francis is celebrating his 81st birthday today. American Horror Story actress Sarah Paulson is celebrating her 43rd birthday today. The voice behind Peppa Pig, Harley Bird, turns 16 today. And Mila Jovovich, the Ukrainian singer, model and actress who starred in The Fifth Element and appeared in The Three Musketeers, turns 42 today. Epic birthday wishes to one and all. I'm sure you're all tuned into Insanity Radio right now. I'm sure you're all listening. I'm sure you're all loving this. Also, another interesting thing, not only is The Simpsons celebrating so many years on the air today, but James Cameron's cinematic saga in the form of the movie Titanic. That movie turns 20 years old today. There's a lot happening today. There's lots been happening in the past on this day. I'm quite impressed. The Simpsons, the Titanic, so many birthdays, and just a record-breaking 739 miles per hour. I think that's about 1,100 kilometers. I'm going to throw on a few more tunes. I'm going to go back to classic White Shadow. I'm going to go back to some of my classics. Stay tuned. There will be more to come, I hope, if my throat allows. Have fun, rock on, keep listening. Sail by AWOL Nation. Before that, we had Video Killed the Radio Star by The Buggles and Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and my throat is actually starting to go, so I think I might call this the last link. We have, I'm sure some of you will be delighted after an hour of listening to things about The Simpsons. I've had some very, very mixed feedback from the show today. I've had some people saying they absolutely love The Simpsons. I have had people saying that we've had people saying they're definitely convinced that The Simpsons can predict the future. I've had two people messaging and saying that they think The Simpsons could change the future and have changed the future. I've had people saying, please stop, enough is enough, I can't stand The Simpsons. It's been a mixed show. It's been a good show. It's a topic I've been wanting to cover for a long time. My throat is definitely going. My dote is boating. Okay, yeah. Next week, I will be here from 12 till 2 again, possibly with a little less Simpsons, but definitely with a lot more Christmas, because it will be Christmas Eve. That's right, I will be here at 12 till 2 next week on Christmas Eve to share a little festive jolly joy. And so, yeah, if we've got any song requests, get those Christmas song requests lined up. I will be setting them up for next week. Stay tuned, because I believe we have Katie Williams. Please be Katie Williams coming up next. You have been absolutely fantastic. See you next week. Let's see if I can do this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, let's get ready to rumble.